I'm here with indie author Stephanie Verni. Just a note, when I say indie, I'm referring specifically to self-publishing. Stephanie is the author of a number of self-pub titles that include contemporary fiction, romantic fiction, and women's fiction. In addition to her fiction, Stephanie also has an academic textbook published, and she is the co-author of Event Planning, Communicating Theory and Practice. Her most recent release, The Letters in the Books, has been on Amazon's hot new releases for 2 weeks. Is it still 2 weeks, Stephanie, or is it
I think we just moved into 3 weeks, which I can't believe.
Perfect. So it's been on Amazon's hot new releases for 3 weeks. So welcome, Stephanie. Thank you so much for joining me on my very first podcast interview. I appreciate you being my maiden voyage, I guess we'll say.
I'm honored. This is so exciting.
And for listeners, Stephanie and I are actually critique partners. She is in, there are about, there are 5 of us in total.
5 of us. Mm-hmm.
And Stephanie is one of my critique partners. So I'm really thrilled that she is my very first interview.
This is fun.
Now, I do have some questions prepared. I did a couple of videos before, I think it was in like June or July, and I was like, what are your favorite interview questions? So we won't be able to get to all of them because it's such a short podcast, but we're going to get to as many as possible. And the first one, I think it must be super exciting to see your newest release on like a hot new release list. I can't even imagine that feeling. So you've been on for 3 weeks. How often have you been refreshing the rank to see where you are?
I'm not going to lie. The first week I was refreshing about every 3 hours because I just wanted to see what was happening. As indie authors, we do a lot of pre-promotion. What I mean pre-promotion, I mean like the year before.
Mm-hmm.
Like we are out there talking about our work, what we're working on, getting people excited about it. And so I really did it a little differently this time with this release than I did with any other ones. And that is that I really did talk about it for quite a while. So I wanted to see what impact that marketing had on it. And also like a little bit of my past life is I am a professor and was a professor, full professor up until this past May. And I was in that role for 14 years as a full professor. I've been at the university for a total of 23 years. But the reason that I'm telling you this, and I've backed down to now adjuncting again, because there are so many other things that I want to do with my writing and other things. So now I'm an adjunct again. But the reason I'm saying that is I taught a course in new media, and I learned a lot about the whole pre-promotion, and I was doing it along with my class, which was really fun to like not only be the teacher, but also be the student and be doing a lot of this new media approach with social media and blogging and anything else you can think of that we have access to do that. So the curiosity was that I wanted to see how much of what I had done made an impact. And to see it kind of still going on, like I just checked it about an hour ago, and I think it was at number 39.
Oh, wow.
In my genre, you have to remember, this isn't overall on Amazon. This is just in the hot new releases in my genre. And I've never come this far before. So that was exciting. So it was like the combination of like what I had learned about marketing and new media, and then also, launching this book. It was really fun to sort of sit back and see like what's going to happen now, So that is why I check it periodically, and then I think to myself, well, what could I be doing more? What else do I need to do? What story could I be telling that would maybe warrant someone picking up my book, So yeah. That's a long answer to your question.
No, and it makes me wonder, are you considering, because a lot of times, especially when self-published authors get very, very, very big, then they're trying to give us advice, but I don't think they really remember what it was before they got really big. So I'm wondering if you've considered giving like a marketing class, doing a marketing webinar for other indie authors, other self-published authors.
I've thought about this, and it's funny. The woman, so in town here where I live in Severna Park, Maryland, we have a lovely independent bookstore. And she said to me when I brought books to her, because we're doing this really cool thing. My book's called The Letters in the Books, and I'm handwriting letters that I'm slipping inside these books. And so when a customer buys a book from the bookstore, they get a letter in their book, just like the characters in the books get letters in their books. So she said to me, you really ought to teach a class on like self-publishing and marketing. And I haven't thought about it before because, it's like that imposter syndrome thing. It's like,
Oh, yeah.
well, a lot of it is trial by error, and we're learning as we go. And I mean, I would love to. I mean, there's definitely certain things I could teach people how to do and what to do, that I think have been effective for me. But then I go and I see, someone else, posts a reel and they have 12,000 views and I've got, 500. So it's a weird world of social media and marketing. But, I heard a really interesting thing, and I really want to pass this along to anybody who's listening, because I thought this was sort of the thing that made me go, just keep doing what you're doing. And that was, somebody posted this really funny reel that said, so what if only 30 people like my reel or see my reel? If I opened my front door and there were 30 people standing there, I would be overwhelmed. And it made me go, wow, that's a really great way to think of it. I think we're so competitive. Like we see this other author get 12,000 views on something and we go, oh, why did I get 400 or why did I get 500? Well, guess what? If half of those 400 are actually paying attention to you, you're hitting some folks, you're reaching. And
Exactly.
so I think we have to stop saying like, my video didn't go viral, I didn't get this many. Little by little, it's little ticks at a time. And I think that's what we have to say as indie authors, is we really have to stop beating ourselves up. And we have to
Right.
say it's little, one of my other books is called Little Milestones. And I kind of feel like it's like what I say in that book, little teeny milestones that are going to get us where we hopefully want to be someday.
Absolutely. I think that we get so caught up in this content creator mindset that we don't think that writing is a long game. It really is. And if you're in it to be rich the day after you publish your first book, that's just not going to happen. I mean, it has happened for some people who have really collected those people and have really gone viral on social media, but that's not the norm. That's the exception. And I think that that's something really important that writers need to keep in mind. Yes, we need to be on social media marketing our books, but it's really about reaching those 30 people so that those 30 people share your work, and then maybe the people they share it with share your work, and so on and so forth. And
Exactly.
that's how it happens.
And that's what I think I'm seeing. I think I'm seeing people who are my good Facebook readers, like they wait for my books to come out, and those Facebook people are sharing with their Facebook friends. And I think it's kind of like this little trickle effect. And it'll be interesting to see, what happens 4 months from now. Like, will
Yeah.
that book have faded into obscurity, or will it continue to like have some readers? I don't really know, and no one knows. But that's one thing. And then another thing I can say to those folks out there who want to be an indie author is, are deciding, do I want to go traditional and really go for it? Or do I want to, go the indie author route? And this is one thing that I can share. So my friend he is with a publisher. He doesn't write fiction, he writes nonfiction, but nonfiction tends to sell really well.
Mhm.
So anyway, he writes nonfiction, but he said to me the other day, we had a very long conversation, and we follow each other. We've been friends for years. And he said to me, he said, I have a publisher. I still have to do everything. I have to do all my own marketing. I have to do all my own everything. the only thing they help me with is like scheduling me for like a book talk or a book read. He said, other than that, I'm pretty much like on my own, and I have to split my proceeds with the publisher, the agent, and then me. He said, you guys who are indie authors, he goes, I sometimes wonder if I should just do it myself, because it's you and Amazon, or you and Barnes and Noble, or whoever you want to list it with, Ingram Spark, whoever. And you get to decide how much percentage is coming out and blah blah blah. Like you really are in control. You're at the wheel. And he said, and my one friend, now this is a true story. My one friend, he decided not to go the agent route, and he's an indie author, and he's doing his own marketing and everything, and he's now making over $60,000 a year just on his books.
That is fantastic.
So yeah, I really think the marketing thing, it takes a while, and you have to know how to do it, and you have to finesse it, and you have to not be afraid to try new things. And if they flop, they flop, whatever, take it down or leave it up and move on to the next thing. But so much of it is about, I think one of the things, I think some indie authors make the mistake. This is just Stephanie Verni insight and having taught this class. But I think that some indie authors make the mistake of only posting about their book. Like all they do is post, here's my book, here's about my book, here's book. Like they want to see you as a brand. Like they want to see the author as a brand. Like, what's your back life like? What do you enjoy doing on the side? Who are you? And why do you write these books? And once they start like getting, a feel for who you are and what you write, then people are more apt when you have a launch. You're like, oh, okay, I've been following her for a while. She's kind of fun and funny, and she does a lot of cool things. I'm going to pick up her book,
Exactly.
And so I think, like I do know one person that I follow on Instagram, and the only thing this person posts are like still photos of their book.
Mhm.
And that, while that works, that can work every third time maybe. What else do you do? What else there's so many writing challenges out there that you can just look and see, what are people posting about? What are people interested in? And try to do some of those things. But I would say mix it up and be fun.
Show your family, show your vacations, show your dinner, show the personal side of you. And that's what I had a writer tell me once, you post too many pictures of your grandchildren. And I said, well, my grandchildren are a really big part of my life, so of course I'm going to post a lot of pictures of them. And they told me, you should only be posting your book, or you should only be posting about writing. And I was like, well, that's not everything that I am. I'm not only a writer, I'm also a wife and a mother and a grandmother and a sister and a daughter, and I like to go places, and I don't feel like that I should be defined as solely a writer and only whatever book I have coming out. So I 100% agree with what you said, and I'm totally on board, because you can't just be a book.
No, because people get tired of that, right? Like how many still photos can you take of your book with a cup of tea? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But you got to do a little bit of that. I'm not saying you can't do that, but you've got to show another side of yourself, and just why you write, like what inspires you, what gets
Exactly.
you excited, those kind of things.
Exactly. And since you brought it up, what inspires you as a writer?
Well, it's interesting. I guess I kind of feel like, how we kind of feel like we have a purpose or whatever. I feel like part of my purpose here on this earth is to help people feel like there's hope. And not to feel alone, and not to feel like you're the only person who's ever gone through this before, or just to bring some lightness into the world. There's so much heaviness, and there's so much anger and angst and all that. Like I want to be a bright spot in somebody's read. Like I want them to read a book and not feel like it was too challenging, and just be like, oh, that was, I'm glad I read that. That was really sweet, or that was nice, or I love that one character. I wish I were friends with that person, or that character. Um, that's so to I'm inspired to bring joy. That's it. Like hope and joy. Like I don't want you to read my book and want to rip your hair out or like get angry or get scared or like that's just not the type of writer I am. And like I think also when we know what kind of writer we are, like I remember when I wrote my second book, Baseball Girl, yeah, I worked in baseball for 13 years. I wanted to tell the story of what it was like for a woman, to work in professional baseball. And I wanted the story not to feel autobiographical because I didn't want that. So I wrote the first 3 chapters and I thought it was like brilliant. And I gave it to my mother. And I had already written one book. And this was my second. And I remember her reading the first 3 chapters and she was like, "Who wrote this?" And I said, "I did." And she's like, "It doesn't sound like you." She's like, "It sounds like you're trying to be something you're not." And it was so funny because I was influenced by this very dramatic book that I had just read. And I think I was trying to be like dramatic. And I was like, "Ooh, you know what? That's not me." And I scratched the whole thing and I started over.
Oh,
And I
wow.
mean, I think that we just have to know like what kind of writer we are and what we bring to the table and what is our part in helping a reader, have get some enjoyment out of our work.
And what do you think your strengths are as a writer on the page? Do you think that your strength lies in your voice, your style, or do you think that your strengths are all encompassing?
I would say over the years, I think I've gotten stronger overall as a storyteller, but I think I'm really strong at dialogue.
You do have
I
good
like
dialogue.
writing dialogue. I like kind of like imagining what these people would say, and I like quick kind of um, what's the word, like sort of good banter. I like good
Mhm,
banter
mhm.
between the characters. So I really strive to do well with dialogue because I think people want to hear the characters,
Yes,
and
yes.
so I think if you can really bring those characters to life through the dialogue, you're doing something pretty good there on the
Yeah.
page.
And
So
that
I
is
would,
a strength. I'm sorry to interrupt, but
oh
that
no,
is a strength because dialogue is it can go either way. You can read really stilted dialogue that it just seems like the people are standing there with their arms down the entire scene, or you can read dialogue that really brings everything to life. So it's a definite strength if you're good at dialogue.
yeah, I think so because it's like kind of when you go to the movies, right? And a character says something completely stupid, or my husband and I hate this in a movie where it's like this intense, action scene, and then somebody makes a one-liner, and we're like, really? When like bombs are being thrown at you, you're gonna say a funny one-liner? You know, it's kind of like that thing is like, oh, is the dialogue real or is it not? Is it realistic, or is it far-fetched? What is it? So
Right.
it's just one of those things I keep in mind when I'm writing the characters.
Very good. Now, we I have to wrap it up now, unfortunately. But I do want to tell everybody you have 2 things that are upcoming. I know that you're working on the historical that was set the year before the Brooklyn Dodgers left for LA, right?
Yes.
So is that one slated to come out next year?
I would say I would say that one probably wouldn't be ready till maybe like next spring. I guess next spring I'd like to release that.
When does
So
baseball season start?
yeah, right before baseball season would be really good, or like right as baseball season starts. Yeah, because it's a historical, it takes place during the years of the Dodgers leaving Brooklyn and going to LA, and there's a romance, and it's a romance, it's a romance
Yes.
slash we got this bad sister. But anyway, it's women's fiction. And I'm excited to finish that because it's been a while since I've tackled it, but I'm
I can't
excited.
wait because I love historical women's fiction. So I'm all about this book. And you're also re-releasing your your take on Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol are you releasing it in November? I can't remember.
Yes. So what I did was last year. So I had hip replacement surgery last September, and I released my. So I wrote that, like, sort of a sequel to what happened to Ebenezer Scrooge after he saw the ghosts. My family and I have been obsessed with Ebenezer Scrooge forever, and so we were at the dinner table one night. And we were like, well, what exactly did he do? So I wrote this sequel of what he did, and it's a novella. It's very short. And when I published it, because I was, sort of laid up and recovering from surgery, I didn't do a really good release on it.
Mhm.
So I had purchased all this clip art that I put inside this book. Well, I have hired an artist to draw new renderings that will go inside this book that will begin each chapter. So I'm actually super excited that this book is going to really mimic Charles Dickens's A Christmas Carol when he hired an illustrator to illustrate for his book. So I really wanted to do this to give it more of that authentic feel, like Dickens, and I've loved Dickens forever. And the last thing I would ever want to do is disappoint Charles Dickens.
Yes.
So, so I'm going to re-release that. Probably, I'm guessing that will release right after Halloween.
Okay.
So we'll re-release it then with the new artwork. And I've seen the artwork coming in, and it's really, really cool. It's really beautiful.
That's
So I'm
awesome.
excited.
I love that you're doing it in the same style that Dickens did A Christmas Carol. A Christmas Carol is one of my favorite stories of all time. And I just think there's so much to unpack with it, and there's just so much that it says. So I'm really excited. I'm planning to buy it when you re-release it.
Yes, with the new artwork.
Yes, I wanted to wait for the new artwork. So I can't wait to read it and, of course, give you a review, because reviews are so important
Oh
for
gosh,
indie
yes.
authors.
Reviews. People, review your indie authors. That's the best thing you
Yes.
can do for them. Reviews, reviews, reviews. That's what we need.
Now, before we sign off, I would like for you to tell everyone where they can find you on social media. You've mentioned Facebook. I know you're on Instagram. If you want to tell everybody what your handles are, and then I'll, of course, put them in the show notes.
Okay, yes, I am. It's pretty easy. I'm on TikTok and Instagram at Stephanie Verni Writes, all one word, Stephanie Verni Writes. And I'm on Facebook / Stephanie Verni, I think. And I am on Twitter, but I don't know about you, but Twitter is a funny animal. I haven't really figured out how to do Twitter well, but I am on Twitter. I read other things on Twitter. It's like my news source pretty much.
Yeah,
but
me too.
I don't post a lot on there, but I am on Twitter at Steph Verni. So we'll see if I can figure that out at some point.
I told my husband last night, I said, if it's not on Twitter, it hasn't happened.
Right,
So,
right.
That's the best news source.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you so much for talking to me with me today, Stephanie. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to reading your submission for this month.
Oh yes, I got to go do that right now. I have to go put that together. So thank you for having me, Sayward. I really, really appreciate it. And best of luck with your podcast.
Thank you. Bye, Stephanie.
All right, bye.